Wright's big guests.
Tell me about Alex Jennings, first of all, if you would, Alan. I won't give too much away, but he plays you twice.
He played me first on the stage at the National Theatre, but he looks more like me on the screen. On the stage at the National Theatre, he occasionally looked like Veronica Lake, because his hair was very blonde, but it's much more like mine now. He plays the writer part of me and as it were, the person who lives a life rather than the person who observes a life. I don't know technically how they do it, but he's on the screen with himself a lot of the time.
What did you tell him? Did you instruct him in any way or form?
No, the only thing we regular note came up was me trying to sound less wet, really. I mean, Alex butched it up a bit, I think, probably. But that was the only technical note I gave him.
Have you been aware all of your life of your unique vocal delivery?
You wouldn't think it was unique if you lived in Leeds. Most of them talk like me in varying degrees. I wasn't aware that I had a northern accent until I went into the army, really, when to do my national service. It comes and goes. I think there was a point when I wanted to get rid of it, but then I've got used to it. And it's been a great blessing, really.
I suppose we should set it up a little bit. So we're in Camden. Mm-hmm. Your character, you, are living in Camden, and suddenly there's the arrival of this, what we would call these days, I suppose, a bag lady.
Well, I suppose she would be called a bag lady. She would never call herself a bag lady. She thought of herself as being quite respectable. She never thought of herself as what she would call one of the desperate poor. And there were some quite grand people living in the Crescent. I mean, there was Vaughan Williams, the composer's widow, and there was a big friend of hers was Elizabeth Jane Howard, who was Kingsley Amis's ex-wife. And Miss Shepherd, smelly and disgusting though she was, she regarded herself as really on a par with them, as a person of some consequence. But she certainly had lots of bags, and they were in the van or under the van, and were occasionally flung out of the back door of the van. And so she was, technically speaking, a bag lady.
I heard a great phrase the other day, and it was exaggerated realism. How much of the movie is exaggerated?
Well, it's not really exaggerated. Technically speaking, all these facts, I only found out about her after she died. But you do get the sense that she has a mysterious past, and the fact that she gets so incensed when she hears music, and when she can hear music from the house, is to do with her past. As when she was very young, she was a very good pianist and studied under Cortot in Paris, so she must have been pretty good, because he was the leading virtuoso of the time. But as I say, I didn't know any of this until after she died, and her brother told me about her, and he played a record of her playing. But he also said she was a bully, which she was. He said she bullied him and she bullied me,
So why were you so nice?
No, I wasn't nice. I was just wanting to get on with my work, and she stopped me getting on with my work if she was in the street. She was right in front of my window, so I could see her as I worked. And people used to rough her up a bit, tease her or bang on the side of the van. And they didn't do any physical harm, but they just used to get her out of the van and see her make a row. And I used to have to keep an eye on this, and when I could, I'd go out and stop it. But it got so that keeping an eye on her interfered with my own work. I couldn't concentrate on writing. I was keeping an eye on her. So in the end, I said to her, "You better bring the van into my drive," which was quite short, and just about took the van, and then eventually you'll better see what you're going to do and then go. And this would enable me to get on with my work, because people didn't bother her when she was in the garden. And that's how she came to be there. And she was there, as I thought originally, for 3 months, but she ended up being there for 15 years.
Do you always seek to make sure that movies and or plays that don't involve you directly, that you've written, are faithful to the original?
I ensure it because I don't have much imagination, probably. Nicholas Hyten always says that I'm too wedded to the truth. And when we were doing, for instance, Madness of George III, he occasionally took liberties with the historical truth. And at university I was a historian, and this shocked me that we were actually not telling the whole historical truth. But I've got a bit easier as I've got older. And of course, you need to be able to lie as a writer. That's what writers do, really.
Your career is an incredible career. part of the British culture for 30, 40 years. As you look at your career, you must be absolutely delighted, happy, very pleased. Or are you a frustrated playwright that wants to just do the next thing?
I do want to do the next thing. People think of what you've written as a kind of upholstery for your life, and you're cushioned by it, but I've never felt that. You're only a writer when you're actually doing it, as it were, the point of the pen. And I do want to go on doing the next thing, though I've been very, very lucky in the sense that I've been able to go on for as long as I have, and also been in favour with the public as long as I have, because playwrights particularly have quite short careers, really.
I think that people probably forget that you were part of the satire boom. Yeah. When you look around at satire and comedy, are you happy? Is there enough of what you started around at the moment?
There are, but I think some of the stand-ups, they pose as being critical, and they're not really. They're fawning more. Stuart Lee I like as a stand-up comedian.
Me too.
I like him because he gives no concessions to anybody, and I think that's really good. The thing about him is he's got the courage to pause endlessly. I mean, he can pause and wait, and I would have no courage to do that at all.
Would your stuff have got on the air, or, got on in the theatre if there weren't public subsidy, if there weren't public broadcasting, do you think? Could you have survived? Could you have been successful?
No, I couldn't. I started off working with Stephen Frears, and we were both much helped by a BBC producer, Innes Lloyd. He gave you space to do it. And in a very different way, and a very different sort of producer, Ned Sherrin was like that. He just let you get on with it.
I should say that Jim Naughtie has been in here. We're at a hotel in central London. Jim Naughtie has been in here before us. And I don't know if he broached this subject with you, but anything, Alan Bennett, to say about the BBC?
He didn't broach it with me, but I would so heartily endorse the BBC and would support it up to the hilt. Along with the National Health Service, it's the most valuable thing that we've got.
Are you a really contemporary person? I mean, do you, for example, have a mobile phone? Are you a computer literate and all of that?
I have a mobile phone, but that's all I use it for phoning. I can't do any of the other things that you do with it. And I've never missed any of that. We did have a computer for a short while, and then we were burgled, and that was the only thing they took, the computer. So we never replaced it. My partner has a computer at work, but I've never had one, and I've never felt it would be any help writing, really. I can see it would be a help typing and doing a script and so on, but not actually the creative part of it.
That's extraordinary. I do have visions of you working at a typewriter. It would almost be disappointing to see you at a computer.
I do work at a typewriter, but I've got about 5 typewriters in varying stages of dilapidation. 2 of them work, and the rest are shoved under the table.
People always describe your stuff, with the talking heads and all of that stuff, as, I don't know if this is fair or not, homely. Essentially British, but very homely. Is that okay?
Well, some of it's homely, but some of it's quite brutal, I think, really. I don't think of it as homely at all. And even, say, the last monologue I did with Thora Hird, called Waiting for the Telegram, where she's regretting how she didn't sleep with her sweetheart before he went off to the First War. That might seem to be homely, but it's actually about everybody's regret about the things that they haven't done. I mean, people do regret what they haven't done much more than what they have. She weeps almost all the way through the piece. That's not homely. It's just sheer tragedy, regret, really.
And in this film, of course, there's a little knock at the kind of middle classes and how pompous and ridiculous they seem. Yeah. Am I right?
Yes, all the incidents about them giving her Christmas presents and so on are absolutely true. I lived next door to a woman called Alice Thomas Ellis, who was a novelist, and she was married to a man called Colin Haycraft, who was head of Duckworth, the publishers, and he was bringing out a book about Roman history. So in order to celebrate this, they had a Roman dinner party. And the next morning I saw Anna going over to the van with a plate of leftovers, and she said, "These are some Roman remains," which we brought. And Miss Shepherd, I think she probably just shoved them out, you know, she had no time for anything like that. But they were kind of comically middle class.
Are people that you see and people that you meet, are they kind of material for you?
Not so much now, not really. I used to keep notebooks and write down what people said, but I ended up with about 30 notebooks, and of the stuff in the notebooks, I think I used about 5 sentences and I thought, well, it's not worth doing. So I don't keep notebooks like that now. But I'm 80 now, so, you've got a fairly long life to draw on of stuff that have happened. I'm not short of material. What you're short of is the energy to finish it or to write it, really.
But you don't seem like 80.
I do to myself. I do. It's because I've kept my hair, but I hobble a bit. I feel I am at 80 when I'm walking along, but I can cycle better than I can walk.
Well, there is a bit in the film, you as you, cycling in a scene.
That's right. I cycled down Gloucester Crescent, though we had to do, I think, about 4 takes of it, and by the 4th take I was flagging a bit.
Maggie Smith is awesome in the film, is she not? Just very quickly for people, obviously, who haven't seen it, she plays the part of this lady that is in the van. Tell us about her performance.
It's almost not a performance. She just became Miss Shepherd, the person who I knew. And when I try and think of Miss Shepherd now, I can't. I can just think of Maggie. And she was sometimes so uncannily like her. It did take me back to what it was like in 1975 when she moved in.
Listen, good luck with the film, and we should say that you, as yourself, appear at the end. But
I don't know whether that'll bring the audience in, but anyway.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Now, here comes Bobbie Pryor and Tim Smith, and we're going to have a look at some factoids, aren't we, Bobbie? What you got?
Just like fingerprints, everyone's tongue is different.
Is that
Go on,
right?
show us your tongue.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
No. Here's Tim.
Do you think animals dream when they sleep?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Well,
'cause-
nobody knows. What do you mean, of course?
Well, you can see a cat going like that, and a dog, they're going like that.
Scientists still don't know and possibly never will if animals dream during REM sleep like humans do.
Let's say you were in a time machine and were about to be transported to a random point in time. What would you bring with you? A new survey today finds that the Bible would be the most common item we'd bring while time travelling, followed by antibiotics. Now,
Are we going forward or backwards in time?
Well, I guess we're going back, aren't we?
Well, I take a toothbrush as well then and a flannel.
Okay, lovely. Thanks, Tim. I wasn't going to ask you.
You've got to take a camera, surely. Just to
yes.
record everything. It's the most important thing. Take
That's a
a
good
camera.
point.
Who says you're coming back? Here's Bobbie.
A duck's quack doesn't echo anywhere, but nobody knows why.
Well, that's very interesting. And now here's Tim.
You know the pores in your feet?
Yeah.
That's P-O-R-E-S.
So that was a pause then.
Yes, very good. They release about a quarter of a cup of sweat every single day.
Oh, that's lovely to hear that. And Bobbie.
Hair grows slightly faster in warmer weather because heat stimulates circulation and encourages hair growth.
And also, the hair of humans and fur of animals are one of the main characteristics of what is deemed a mammal.
Factoids.
Aaron Sorkin, Oscar-winning screenwriter, producer and playwright, whose films include The Social Network and A Few Good Men. TV work, of course, includes The West Wing and The Newsroom. Now, Aaron's brought his golden touch to one of the biggest movie scripts of the moment, writing the screenplay for the eagerly awaited biopic Steve Jobs, which opens this Friday. It stars Michael Fassbender as the visionary co-founder of the Apple Incorporated computer empire. And he is at a hotel just a few miles away, and we're here in our studio, and he's a huge fan of fish and chips.
Love fish and chips.
What do you like about fish and chips? You just like the taste? You like it with batter on and all of that?
The batter is my favorite part. It's very, very crispy, and I like it with vinegar, a little lemon,
Yeah.
maybe some ketchup,
Oh, yes.
and a shandy.
A shandy?
Yes.
Nothing stronger?
Sometimes something a little stronger, but a shandy goes wonderfully with fish and chips.
Yeah, no, it does. That's a good
Yeah.
choice, Aaron. Very good.
Anyway, thanks for being on. Bye.
My pleasure.
We're going out for fish and chips
Yeah.
now.
Let's all go down to Marylebone Lane together, get some good fish and chips down there.
All right.
Now, listen, this movie, well, it's awesome, first of all.
Thank you very much.
It's just great. Directed by Danny Boyle. How did you set about, it's segmented, we should say.
Yeah.
Explain that, if you would.
Sure, I will. The movie is not a biopic. It doesn't have the traditional cradle-to-grave structure where you land on the character's greatest hits along the way. What the movie is just 3 scenes. Each of those scenes is in real time. Real time, of course, means that 40 minutes for you in the audience is the same as 40 minutes for the characters on the screen.
Yeah.
And each scene takes place backstage in the moments leading up to one of Steve's famous product launches.
Yeah.
Now, I know I've just made it sound as not exciting as I could make it sound, but because of Danny Boyle, because of the great cast, because of our editor, Elliot Graham, and composer, Daniel Pemberton, the whole movie plays like a prison break. It plays like a bank robbery. It's got more energy than a car chase in it. But the whole thing is taking place in the corridors and catacombs and backstage areas of the San Francisco Opera House, the San Francisco Symphony, and Flint Auditorium, where these product launches actually took place.
Well, I can second that emotion because it is exciting. It's hit you between the eyes film at some points during this production. And that's largely due, I think, partly to your script, of course, and also to Michael Fassbender, who is extraordinary in this role, isn't he?
Michael Fassbender is extraordinary in this role. We didn't ask of Michael or of anyone in the cast to do a physical impersonation of the character they're playing. So if you're worried that Michael Fassbender doesn't look like Steve Jobs, once the movie begins, you'll see that that doesn't matter. It's not that kind of movie, though by the third act, which is 1998 and the introduction of the iMac, he's got the black turtleneck, he's got the glasses, and suddenly he really now is a physical embodiment of the character as well.
We should also say that there are some flashback scenes which flesh out the story and the characters. But you didn't quite answer the first question. Why did you structure it like this, Aaron? Why did you go for this kind of 3-act play almost?
The biopic structure, the cradle-to-grave structure, is one that's familiar to audiences. I didn't think that I could do anything new with it, and I'm most comfortable as a playwright. So I like claustrophobic spaces. I like compressed periods of time, especially when there's a ticking clock. And that's why I went for this structure, this very unusual structure.
Now, what do you say to people, critics, I suppose, that say, oh, I don't think it was like that, and maybe an occasional person that may have worked with Steve, oh, that he wouldn't have said that, I wouldn't have said that. What do you make of all of that?
First of all, there are a couple of people who did know Steve very well, including, of course, his widow, Lorene Powell Jobs. And I say this with all respect to Mrs. Jobs. They haven't seen the movie yet. People who know Steve very well who have seen the movie, like Steve Wozniak, with whom he created Apple, like John Scully, his former CEO, Joanna Hoffman, a number of people who've worked closely with him who have seen the movie are very, very enthusiastic about it. But more generally, what I would say is this. This isn't a piece of journalism. There's a difference between journalism and art, and this is a painting as opposed to a photograph. It's meant to be subjective, and that's not an excuse for making stuff up. The conceit of the movie, those 3 acts that I just described, obviously Steve Jobs did not have confrontations with the same 5 people 3 times in his life. That's a writer's conceit.
Yeah.
But the content of those confrontations is real.
So how much responsibility did you feel then when you were writing this, as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a playwright? Because he wasn't always a nice guy, so that had to be portrayed, didn't it?
It did. And his genius had to be portrayed too. To answer your question, how much responsibility did I feel? A great deal. Anytime you're writing about a real person, even in this case, if they've passed away, still he has children, he has a widow, he has friends and colleagues who are very much alive, he has a legacy. You feel a great responsibility. You take the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. You have a moral compass. What am I willing to invent in order to get at a more important truth? Is that thing that I'm inventing in any way harming them? In other words, if all, to use what we were talking about earlier, if all he did was drink a beer with his fish and chips, but I have him doing 5 tequila shots in a row, that's a big difference. And that's not something I would do. So you have your own internal compass. If for some reason your internal compass is broken, you have the movie studio's legal department to help you out. They will not allow you to say anything that is untrue and defamatory.
There's a great line towards the end of the film, and it's a short line. He says, "I'm poorly made." Steve Jobs says that. And that, to me, having watched the film in essence, is kind of where you're coming from in terms of the whole character. Is that true?
That is true. And the ways in which he compensates for that belief by making products that aren't poorly made and by making products that have a personality that people can get emotional about. You know, I took this job just a few weeks after Steve Jobs died and noticed that the entire world was eulogizing and mourning this man the way we had with John Lennon. And I was not someone who was emotional about everything I've written on a Mac. I have an iPhone in my pocket. I get a lot of use out of these devices. but I wasn't emotional about them. So the first thing I wanted to do was try to figure out why people were. And Steve would have been happy to know that people were emotional about these devices, that they weren't poorly made, and that was filling this void that he felt in himself.
You say that you have all those devices, and we all do, of course. Did you have to learn a lot of nerdy jargon and technical stuff in order to write this?
There are moments in the movie that I wrote that I don't understand, even. What I needed was a tutor to teach me the nerdy jargon. But I promise moviegoers, you will not be deluged with nerdy jargon. You don't have to be a technophile. You don't have to like Apple products. You can have a Samsung phone or no phone. It's not about machinery.
Can I have an old Nokia or not?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. It's reported that you're working on another biopic of Lucy Ball and Desi Arnaz. Is that true?
The press may have jumped the gun a little bit there. I haven't quite committed to that. There's a good possibility that I'll write about Lucy and Desi. I've just finished a new screenplay that I finished while we were shooting Steve Jobs, and that'll come first.
Brilliant. Listen, great to talk to you, and don't forget to get down Marylebone Lane for the fish and chips a little later on if you can.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'll do, and thank you both. This was terrific.
You can see Steve Jobs in cinemas from Friday, rated 15. Aaron Sorkin, everybody. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you very much.
It is possible, although not recommended, to extract aspirin from the bark of trees. Now, here's Bobbie Pryor.
If you had a 10-gallon hat, you two,
Yeah.
how much liquid would you think it would hold?
It wouldn't be 10 gallons.
Yeah.
I might have done this years ago. I think no more than 1.5 gallons.
You're absolutely right, Tim.
About 2 gallons, I think.
No, it can only hold 3/4 gallon.
Why call it a 10-gallon hat then? Why?
I don't know.
The annual Academy Awards or Oscars were first held in 1929 at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. Only 15 different awards were presented on the night, but they did have a big party afterwards.
Okay, yeah, they did. Put yourself back in the summers. There it is, a queen bee. Can you see it? Can you see it?
Yeah, got it.
Queen bee, it's all nice and everything.
Yep.
How many eggs can it lay in one day? There's the queen bee. There he is.
100,000.
Or she is. Yeah. How many? Go ahead. What?
100,000.
100,000?
50,000.
No, 3,000.
Factoids.
Go on, do
No,
David Mitchell.
I can't do my
Do
David
your
Mitchell.
David
I'm not going to do it. David Mitchell's actually
Oh.
here. He's actually here. I was just saying to David slightly off the air that I can do a David Mitchell, but of course, doing it in front of you, that would be a grotesque thing to do, wouldn't it?
Well, Rob Brydon often does an impression of me in front of me, and to me it doesn't sound like me, but to other people apparently it does.
You have a very distinctive voice, actually, and it's unmistakable, really.
I think, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's a
Unless
compliment,
it's-
all right.
Unless it's sort of unmistakable. Oh, God, that weird nasal screech again.
Can I just say, and I don't mean this rudely in any way, looking at your shirt, it does look like a pyjama top.
Well, it is. The alarm went off late. What can I say?
I know, that's why you were in such a rush to get in here,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. David Mitchell, actor, comedian, writer, newspaper columnist, panel show regular, and one half of Mitchell and Webb. David and his comedy partner, Robert Webb, are back for the 9th and final series of Peep Show, starting tonight at 10 p.m. over on Channel 4. Peep Show, in case you didn't know, is about Mark and Jez, David and Robert respectively, who are two friends who met at university and became flatmates with slightly chaotic lives and seemingly not a lot in common. Mark being a lone manager and Jez a slacker and wannabe musician. Now, as I recall, the last series ended rather, well, it wasn't pleasant, was it, really?
No, they weren't getting on at the end of the last series,
Yeah.
Mark and Jeremy. They'd attempted to electrocute each other at a picnic. Because, as usual, Mark wanted to propose to his girlfriend and Jeremy wanted to steal his girlfriend.
Yes.
And, Mark considered that unforgivable.
There was a scene in a field, wasn't there?
Yes, they were in the field by an electric fence, pushing each other into it, while the woman of both of their dreams walked away.
Now, this has been going, this series, since what, about 2000-something? 2002,
2003 it started, yeah.
And it caught on, as they say, immediately.
I think we started, no one knew who we were and we hadn't hadn't done a show like that, and Sam Bain and Jesse Armstrong, the writers, had done a bit of writing, but not much. So we were all sort of new, but we were given an opportunity to do a little edgy show in a late night slot, and it's something that doesn't happen in television so much now, that an audience was allowed to find it, and then got some nice reviews, and then the next series a few more people came to it, and so it wasn't sort of launched in a terrifying come on everyone look at this way. It was it found its audience, and its audience is very loyal, and people who started watching it as teenagers or in their early 20s are now approaching middle age.
Of course they are.
Was it quite brave for its time? Because as you say, it was very edgy, and this new series looks like it's equally as edgy.
Well, the thing about it is it's a show where you hear the characters' thoughts, and you can't really realistically have characters where you hear their thoughts without getting a bit edgy, because all of us sometimes think terrible things.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes the show funny.
Because there's some bad language in it, isn't there?
Absolutely, yeah.
From the start.
I'm thinking some bad language now
Really
that
don't.
couldn't be broadcast. If you were
Okay.
broadcasting my thoughts now,
Yes.
then it would be an issue for Ofcom.
Is that because you're upset because he mentioned your shirt?
No, not nasty swearing, not angry swearing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but forget about the shirt now. He's not.
You
He's not worried
started
about
the
he's not
shirt.
worried about. You're not worried about the shirt, are you?
No, you're going to go onto the slippers and
Just don't verbalise your thoughts.
All right, now tell us a little about the opening episode, and because you have a new flatmate, so where's he going to be?
well, the thing is, Mark and Jeremy, when we start in this episode, they've become estranged. They've not seen each other since the episode in the field with the electrocuting. And Mark is furious, really feels that Jeremy owes him about as large an apology as anyone could
enough,
express.
Maybe, yeah, quite right.
And Jeremy is not quite of that view. And so, Jeremy's not living with Mark anymore. He's got his own domestic arrangements. And Mark has found a new flatmate who is a more respectable figure than Jez and is a fan of the work of William Morris, for example. And Mark and this Jerry are having a very civilised flat share.
Existence, yeah. Recently, I know you've been filming a new Professor Brainstorm special. This is with Harry, yeah?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
And
so-
written by Charlie Higson. And
Brilliant.
It's a lot of fun.
And did it go well? I mean, it's done already, yeah?
Yeah, all done, and I think it should be very funny and fun and Christmassy and a great experience.
And what will you be doing after the Christmas stuff? You know what you're doing next year?
I'm doing a new sitcom about Shakespeare.
A sitcom?
A sitcom about Shakespeare in which I play Shakespeare, and it's written by Ben Elton. And it's going to be like a very different type of sitcom to Peep Show. It's going to be filmed in front of an audience. Big, historical, hopefully funny show.
Okay, so it's set in Shakespearean times. It's not
Yeah.
set in modern day or anything.
No.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That
about Shakespeare's struggles to become recognised as the genius he is.
Wow. And will you be wearing one of the ruffle things?
I'll be wearing all sorts of crazy Elizabethan
Doublet and
clothes.
hose.
Definitely.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So have you started filming this yet or not?
No, we're filming in January and
I
February.
wasn't sure if you were dressed in your Shakespearean stuff today, that's why.
No, as you rightly, I'm just wearing my night attire now.
And on that bombshell, you can see David Mitchell in the final series of Peep Show. It starts tonight on Channel 4 at 10 p.m. Thank you, David. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
David Mitchell.